on substantive issues, substantive rights that are contained in declarations, in treaties. Article 37 talks about the importance of the treaties that have been signed with, in this case, Canada, and certainly in the U.S. Government. Indigenous peoples have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements concluded with states or their successors, and to have states honor and respect such treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. And so you see that that the treaties also in the preambular paragraph, when you consider that these treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements and the relationship they represent are the basis for a strengthened partnership between Indigenous peoples and states, and you will find that in the preambular, one of the preambular paragraphs in the Declaration. I'm just going through some of these slides very quickly. There's a bit of repetition. Oh, there's a great slide there, great declaration. Now, where's our land? It's an adaptation of a cartoon that we saw following the Prime Minister of Canada's apology to First Nations in Canada, survival of Indian residential schools. What are the role of the member states? Canada, the U.S., for example, the important role in the promotion and protection of the rights set out in the Declaration, specifically Article 38, requires states in consultation and cooperation with Indigenous peoples to take appropriate measures, including legislative measures, to achieve the ends of the Declaration. What have some states done? In November 2007, Bolivia enacted a law to make the UN Declaration a national law. It was adopted in full and is called the National Law on the Indigenous Peoples. It's also being used in Ecuador and Nepal as a normative reference in recent or ongoing constitutional revision processes. Certainly, there is the constitutional discussions taking place in Australia and New Zealand as well. We see the territorial government in Canada passed legislation supporting the Declaration. In the U.S., we have the governments of Hawaii, Arizona, and Maine, which have enacted legislation, as well as a number of different counties and cities which have adopted and supported the Declaration. What is the role of the judiciary? It's an important question. That the courts, domestic courts, should be able to rely on the Declaration as an interpretive guide in applying provisions of domestic law, certainly in their analysis of Section 35 of Canada's Constitution, which recognizes and affirms Aboriginal and treaty rights. An example of the use of the Declaration in Belize, in a case involving the Maya villages and the Attorney General, the Supreme Court used the Declaration and other international sources to guide its interpretation of the Constitution of Belize on the rights, the land rights of Mayan peoples. The Declaration places responsibilities on our people as Indigenous peoples. As I mentioned, Article 25 talks about the intergenerational responsibilities, including environmental stewardship with regard to their traditional lands, territories, and resources. So the idea here is a process of implementation of the rights in the Declaration does require the combined efforts of states and Indigenous peoples, as well as United Nations systems, civil society organizations, NGOs, and key professional groups. And so in this regard, it's really important to thank those non-governmental organizations in civil society and the tremendous degree of support that they have provided in having the Declaration completed and certainly adopted by the UN, and now involved in the implementation of it. For example, in Canada, We have Kairos, which is organizing a cross-Canada train rally, as it were, that will culminate in Ottawa on June 21st in support of the UN Declaration and its implementation in Canada. So those are the comments I wanted to make, Terry, in this matter, and certainly encourage those who have the opportunity to attend the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous issues from May 16th to the 21st. I need to remind people, though, that the deadline for registration is May 1st, and you can register online at the UN Permanent Forum website. So those, Terry, are the comments I would like to share with you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you for that thorough overview of the work you are doing on our behalf and the North American representative to the United Nations Permanent Forum. I think that was one of our impetus of this whole project, was to not only assert our rights, but to also have, why this project came forward, was to have an informed decision on, what all this carbon market stuff has to do with, how it affects our Indigenous rights and title, and I thank you for that. And moving along, I just have a few comments to the attendees. There's approximately 110 of you, and you guys are from Canada, United States, United Kingdom, as well as South Africa. And I just wanted to let you know, if you have any questions, not only to Grant Chief Ed John or to the other panelists, just write them, and on your right-hand side of your screen, there's a Q&A. And we'll try to get to those answers. We'll forward those questions to the panelists or to ourselves to find an answer if you have any questions. So please do post your questions, and we'll get to them. Moving along with our agenda, our next presenter is from the National Aboriginal Forestry Association. We have two guest speakers. One is the Executive Director for the National Aboriginal Forestry Association, Harry Bombay, as well as the Senior Policy Analyst, Brad Young, who is working for the National Aboriginal Forestry Association. Just a brief introduction. Harry Bombay has been working for the past 28 years, held a senior level and leadership positions in the areas of Aboriginal economic and community development. He has also managed and directed national programs in natural resource management, institutional development, and consulting and advisory support. Currently, Mr. Bombay serves as the Executive Director for NAPFA, and he is responsible for organization development, strategic planning, and the creation of partnerships with governments and stakeholders. He also has day-to-day duties of administration, and he's been an advocate for Aboriginal people's forest rights and interests, and he has contributed to many publications and presentations on forest issues, and nationally and internationally, and on forest policy forums. Mr. Bombay has studied business management at Bemidji State College in Bemidji, Minnesota, and has a public administration at the graduate level from Carleton University in Ottawa. Mr. Bombay is from the Rainy River Ojibwe First Nation, which is about 40 kilometers from Fort Frances in northwestern Ontario. He will be our first speaker, and following Harry's presentation, is Brad Young, and he's an Opaskwayak Cree from northern Saskatchewan River in present-day northern Manitoba.